I'm Heather.
I'm Nate.
And this is Lacey.
We're going to Whidbey Island.
It's near Seattle, Washington. It's in the Puget Sound, and you can get there by taking a ferry. If you travel about an hour north of Seattle to a town called Mukilteo, you can catch a ferry that'll take you right over to the island. My parents brought me and my sister here when we were kids because my grandparents had a cabin on the island. And oh boy, has it changed since then. They have a whole new ferry terminal and everything. It's completely different.
We pulled up to the new terminal and the line wasn't very long, so after a short wait, we were able to get our tickets, and then we pulled in to park in the waiting area because Lacey wanted to check out the ferries and she needed to get out of the car.
We had to wait for the next ferry to come in. We decided why not wander around and take a look at the new ferry terminal. It was fancy. A lot different than the old wood pilings they used to have when I was a kid.
Lacey kept looking to see when the next ferry was coming in, so we had to tell her the schedule. Once she figured out that she had some more time, she started looking around and she found out that Whidbey Island is connected to everything around it.
We ran into some locals who told us the terminal had just been completed in 2020, and they even had a railway to go with it to make it easy for people to commute to the island.
Lacey checked the time and saw that the ferry was almost in, so she said we should hurry up. We ran back and got back in the car so we would be ready to go when it was time to load up.
We were loaded onto the ferry in an orderly fashion, and as our excitement grew, we couldn't wait to get parked. We wanted to go upstairs and look at the views.
We got parked in a spot with a view, but that wasn't the view we were looking for, so we headed upstairs to find the main deck.
There was plenty of seating inside, and the walls were complemented with artwork. But I was headed outside. I wanted to see those views.
A different look at the terminal that's a daily commute for so many people.
I watched with fascination as the ferry took off. It was a cloudy summer day, which isn't unusual for this area, but it still was a great day to be outside on the ferry. We waved goodbye to the city of Everett as we traveled across the Sound.
Back inside, they had lots of seating that wasn't being used today, along with a cafeteria and some vending machines, so we took a quick tour and then we headed outside to the other side of the boat.
Whidbey Island was straight ahead and we were getting excited.
We watched the views of the island for as long as we could as we came into the dock, but then we had to rush down to our car because it was time to unload.
As we made our way off the ferry, my childhood memories came rushing back. The smell in the air, the houses on the beach. Not a lot had changed on this side. They may have gotten a new sign or two, but otherwise it was just as I'd remembered as we made our way up the hill. And as you head up the hill, you get to see all the cars that are waiting for the ferry to take them back to the mainland. But just as you get to the top of the hill, it's time to head back down because that's where I could find my grandparents' old cabin. It's down a cute little beach road, and as you follow the road along the beach, you suddenly come to the end, and that's where you have to park, and you have to walk the rest of the way. Yep, we used to have to carry our luggage in by wheelbarrow. As soon as we parked, we ran into a neighbor. And even though it had been 40 years, she knew exactly who I was. We walked along and chatted about old times. And as soon as I got to the cabin that used to be my grandparents', I had to stop and take in all the memories. Wow, this is what it used to look like. And even though it was so different, it all felt the exact same. When you were done working, you could just go play on the beach. After we chatted it up with the neighbors for a while, we decided to keep walking. I wanted to take a walk down memory lane and see all the old houses I used to play at. We walked back as far as we could. The sidewalk gets a little bit iffy back here. It always did. Nature's taken its toll on some of the houses, but most of them are in great shape. And everyone looked like they had everything ready to go, ready to enjoy a sunny day on the beach.
That day was not today.
As we walked back, I thought about how many hours I spent as a child playing on this beach, walking along this sidewalk, walking on the bulkhead, falling off the bulkhead. We have so many memories here. It was very cool to come back and visit. We got to talk to the current owners of the cabin, which they've made their beautiful home. They told us about how they found my grandpa's sign and hung it up. I thanked them for the trip down memory lane, and we started to make our way back to the car.
It was so much fun walking through Heather's childhood memories in this tiny little beach community. Her stories came to life as we imagined kids running up and down in this place with no cars, removed from the rest of the world.
That was such a fun trip down memory lane, but it was time to head out and back up the hill. We had to hit the main road so we could go visit the town of Langley. Langley's a cute little town just up the way. You can go sightseeing, they've got shops and restaurants. And as we hit Main Street, we were quick to find out that it was a busy day. We found some parking just up the way, right next to a cute little park.
After sniffing out the park, Lacey led us down to Main Street where she found a great viewpoint for whale watching. We stayed there for quite a while. We were looking for all the different whales that we saw on the signs.
As we were walking along, our stomachs started growling like whales. So we started looking for restaurants, and there was no shortage of them. But I found myself eyeing the old movie theater. I may have seen a couple movies there.
Lacey had to weigh in with her opinion. She said she was getting tired of not spotting any whales and starting to get hungry. So we found a pizza parlor just down the way and put in our food order. Once we got our order in, we headed down the stairs to see if we could find some even better views.
After our bellies were full and we had seen all the beautiful sights we were going to see, it was time to try and go find and check into our rental house. And it was a cute rental house. It had some views of the sound, and because it was in the middle of nowhere on the island, we had some visitors in the yard.
Lacey didn't want to disturb the deer, so she told us it was time to go for a walk and check out the neighborhood.
As we strolled around, we tried to take in all the beauty around us, finding all sorts of fun, quirky little things. Lacey even found a house that was her size.
She thought about moving in until she saw the neighbors.
After running into a massive bee's nest, we took it as a sign to head back to the house. We woke the next morning to cloudy weather again, but it wasn't going to stop us from exploring the island. We were headed to Coupeville today. Coupeville's another cute little town on the island, and it may be small, but it's got a big main street with shopping and restaurants and lots to see here. Unfortunately, like all the other little towns, parking on Main Street can be quite difficult, so we found ourselves wandering up a couple blocks. We found parking easily, and then we could just walk right back down to Main Street.
We had a bird's eye view from our parking spot just up the hill, and it allowed us some time to do some local shopping before we got to the tourist traps on Main Street. And then once we got down to the water, we started acting like tourists and taking pictures of everything.
Of course we did. These were awesome views. Oh, and they had a little wharf here. So we made our way down to that. And as we were walking down, I couldn't help but notice how still the water was. and as I looked up, you could see the buildings just hanging over the water. As you make your way down to the wharf, you go by a series of plaques that tell you about the area and all the changes it's been through.
It felt like we were going back in time to when Coupeville was a little old fishing village, even as coffee shops and restaurants filled its old iconic buildings along the waterfront.
We made our way around to the backside of the wharf, where the pigeons were playing by the boat dock.
They had a kayak rack and a snack shop so you could get something to eat while you watched for whales. Then if you spotted a whale, you could grab your kayak and paddle out to it to say hi. Lacey thought it would be a lot easier just to ring the bell if she spotted a whale. Then everybody else would kayak out to it and show her exactly where it was.
We ran into some other adorable visitors. They were just as impressed with this little town as we were. They told us we should check out the gift shop inside, but it was really so crowded. I was much more content to be outside looking at all these views. We wandered back to Main Street. We were getting hungry. Lacey asked a local for some restaurant recommendations. He told us about a few in town, but told us if we wanted some really good food that we'd need to leave Coupeville and head up on the highway just a bit to the Greenbank farm.
Greenbank Farms has a restaurant that's as farm to table as it comes. We pulled up to the beautiful red barns and we could already smell all the yummy plants growing in the garden.
Someone was painting the picturesque lake. And as we drove down, you could see they had lots of little shops. It looked like they had a cheese shop and a wine shop. There was lots to explore here. But we headed back to the restaurant. We were really hungry.
The restaurant was just off to the side of the original barn that was built in 1904. So we headed around that way until we found the entrance and then we put our order in. Once we got our order in, we thought about exploring the grounds, but Lacey wanted to wait for her food. So we let Heather go so she could go check everything out.
I wandered around the lake until I found the map of the property. There was a lot to see here. Probably wasn't going to get it all done before my food arrived, but I thought I'd just check out what I could. They had educational gardens here, and I found myself looking at something called crevice gardening. I'd never heard of it before. It was some really cool landscaping with rocks in a way I'd never seen before. I had to head back because the food was getting ready. And it wasn't really like a restaurant. It was more like walking into your grandma's kitchen. They had 4 things available. We got the pot pie and the macaroni and cheese, and it was truly amazing. Some of the best food we've ever had. After stuffing our bellies, it was time to head back to the rental house. There was a beach nearby, and we needed to find it. The house had left instructions to find the red gate and head down the hill. So that's what we did. And what a mighty hill it was. Oh my gosh, it was lined with thick northwest trees, the ferns, the blackberries. It was gorgeous, but steep. Lacey got excited when she turned that last corner and we saw the beach. It had been a long walk down a steep hill, but it was worth it because when we got to the bottom, we had this beautiful private beach awaiting us. And I think it was a private beach for all the homeowners in the area. But given the effort it took to get down here, I can see why there's no one here. Although I'm really glad we made the effort because this is gorgeous. And we had so much fun having it all to ourselves.
Lacey was getting a little bit tired after the long walk down the hill and having to go through some thick gravel, but we asked her to keep on going because we knew at the end of the road was the beach. When we got to the end of the road, the beach was pretty rocky and Lacey wasn't real sure about it. She ended up trying to go along the bulkhead to avoid walking on the rocks.
Someone had left some chalk. They were writing their names on the wall. We decided to write Lacey's.
She enjoyed posing in front of her name a whole lot better than she did walking through that gravel.
After letting Lacey hang out on the wall for a while, we asked her if she'd come join us on the beach.
Despite the look she gave us, I still pulled her off the bulkhead and made her start posing. We just couldn't pass up having a private beach all to ourselves. It was a rocky walk and we found lots of cool shells, but we had to watch our step if we were going to stay upright on this beach. We took it one step at a time until we were able to find a cool fort where we could take shelter.
And after checking out the fort, we decided to continue on our journey. We told Lacey she could stop and rest because we'd be back soon, but she decided to join us. And it was just so peaceful walking along, listening to the sound.
The music of the sound had us feeling the love so much that I wanted to dive right into it.
As we headed out of the park, I tried to take in all the last views I could. Soon enough, we were at the hill. And if we thought going down was bad, going up is even worse. We trudged on up, and we made it. And before we knew it, we were back at the house watching the sunset. We awoke the next morning to our first sunny day, and we would have loved to enjoy it, except it was our day to go home. We packed up, said goodbye to the house, and headed back to the ferry line. They loaded us onto the ferry and they put us on the second story, and we ran upstairs to take in all our last views on our last ferry ride.
Thanks for going to Whidbey Island with us.